How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. So the Yankees lost 4-2 to the Rays today, and the pitching was altogether lackluster, but we saw some really good pitching performances. Clarke Schmidt got his first spring start of the year. We saw Will Warren, who we interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and there's some really good takeaways from these pitchers. Now, there was some really bad offensive performances. Austin Wells struck out 3 times. Everson Pereira struck out twice, had a kind of a problematic experience in the outfield today. The wind was blowing, so give him a break there. But altogether, some not so good performances in the batter's box, but on the mound, some really good ones. So Ryan, what did you see from Clarke Schmidt? We'll start with him, his performance, and anything that kind of leads you to be encouraging as we approach the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. First things first, you mentioned the pitching staff. I was really encouraged by Clarke Schmidt's start. I thought that he did a lot of things really well on the mound today. The fastball was apparently sitting around 94 to 95, according to radar guns in the stadium. Obviously, radar guns in the stadium aren't always the most accurate, so, take that with a grain of salt, but we obviously got reports earlier in the week that his velocity was pretty good. In live bullpen sessions, he hit his pitch count. As long as he wakes up tomorrow and feels healthy, that's all that really matters to me. Again, like the guy, we got to see some interesting pitchers. Nick Ramirez is obviously a guy we have some familiarity with, so wasn't necessarily looking at him and going, oh, I can't wait to see him today, in the sense of, it's something we haven't seen before. We've seen him pitch. He was pretty solid for the Yankees as a depth guy for them last year. Could start out the year in AAA because he's a minor league option, and could be a really valuable left-handed arm to just kind of shuttle up and down throughout the season. But the guys who are really interested in watching, Nick Birdie, I thought had some really good sliders in there. Obviously gave up a run, but if you look at the batted ball he gave up a hit on, at first it was a ground ball it was a shift beater down the line. And then there was some, I thought the guy should have gotten thrown out at second. Vina made a really good throw, but Kevin Smith struggled to handle the ball, and it would have been an out had he held on to it. So I'm not going to kill Birdie on that earned run. Looking at a guy like Hampton, he threw a scoreless inning today, 2 strikeouts, 1 walk. I thought he looked pretty good. But the guy you mentioned, Will Warren, and I thought he was really impressive today. 2 2/3 innings pitched. Aaron Boone pulls them in the middle of a 2-1 count, and it's not because Aaron Boone is trying to be, trying to make some dumb move or whatever it may be. It was a pitch count thing. He's at 40-something pitches. I don't think they wanted to extend him much further and risk injury. Remember, they're going to be very delicate with these pitchers. They have to be built up a certain way so that they can sustain their health. Carefulness is something that you're going to have to preach. And of course, the strikeouts. I mean, looking at a sweeper, I thought a sweeper looked impressive. But the thing that impressed me the most was his command against left-handed batters. The cutter, the four-seamer, he was working them in really well. Those are 2 pitches he talked about a lot with us. And ultimately, I was just encouraged to see him, throw well and hold his own against, a Rays lineup that had a lot of their A starters. You had a Rosarena in there. You had Brandon Lau in there. Josh Lowe, excuse me. You also had Yandy Diaz, who won the AL batting champion and was one of the best hitters in baseball last year. So, Alex, I thought it was a really positive sign from Will Warren. I think he might be the star of the game today. And overall, the pitching staff looked really good. But yeah, Will Warren, certainly the guy I walked away with going like, wow, this guy really popped today.
Absolutely. We've talked about Will Warren pretty extensively over the last couple of weeks. He's got really good stuff, nice pitch mix, decent velocity, good break on his stuff. I'm pretty excited to watch what he can do this upcoming season, because the truth is, probability-wise, someone in the rotation is gonna have a tough year or succumb to injury. And if the Yankees need somebody to step up, it's going to be Will Warren. And he said it to us, when it comes to right-handed batting, which is the majority of MLB, just based on, the majority of people being right-handed, it really indicates to us that he's going to dominate against that, level of hitting in terms of right-handed hitting. He is really, really, proficient and efficient towards those type of batters. Lefty is still working on his game, but ultimately, we saw plenty to like. He had really good command. His breaking stuff was on point, generating some weak contact. Did leave 1 man on. They kind of pulled him because of that pitch count, I believe you tweeted out. So, they playing it careful with Will Warren, building his confidence up, not trying to, let him go too far in spring training. So we love to see that. As for Clarke Schmidt, decent velocity, had a couple of good moments, did have a couple strikeouts, I believe, had 2 strikeouts in 2 innings, so nothing to write home about. Warren had 3 strikeouts in 2.2 innings, so, good stuff there, but nice to get their feet wet, nice to get the first kind of jitters out of the way, especially for Will Warren, who's never pitched, in the spring training before, finally, getting that little bit of confidence he needs to take that next step forward. Offensively, Anthony Volpe, we'll discuss him for a moment here. Volpe, obviously, a guy that's refined his swing, trying to get more of a level plane, a lot more line drives, put the ball in play. But he did hit a couple fly balls, and I know you saw you trolling a little bit on Twitter today. He did have a triple as well, line drive, so I think it was just out of the reach of the right fielder, dived for it and missed it, and it went right underneath and slid to the wall. So Volpe with that speed gets to third base. What did you see from Volpe? Obviously still elevating the baseball, which is certainly a good sign. I think he just missed barreling up maybe on a second or third at bat. He had a chance to hit a home run, a good pitch to hit, and I think he just hit at the end of the bat. Ended up being a fly ball to left field, but if a little bit more on the barrel, that might have been gone on a windy day, pushing the ball out. So, what did you see some Volpe? Anything that stood out to you in terms of changes or, progress toward being a little bit better of a hitter in 2024?
Yeah, so first and foremost, for everybody who was like, oh my God, he's only going to hit ground balls all year, we've talked about it all, for the first few days of spring training. If you're drawing conclusions in spring training, you're doing it all wrong. You know what I mean? So, obviously I thought it was an encouraging day for him. I thought he had some good swings. End of the day, I just need these guys to be healthy. That's really all I care about. Nobody's battling for a starting job in terms of, position players. It's not like, there's a shortstop battle, or there's a battle in left field, or center field, or right field, or first base, or third base, or second base, or maybe there's a catching battle, but I think Trevino and Wells will both just play. But my big thing is I just don't think that the Yankees are in a position player battle. There's not really even a rotation spot up for grabs. These guys are just playing to make sure they're healthy and that they're in a good spot, and that's going to be the MO. Until somebody gets hurt and there's a battle created, which could certainly happen, there's no reason for these guys, not for them not to try. Obviously, you want to try, but more so, there's not... These guys aren't playing for jobs. The major league guys are currently not playing for jobs. They're playing to get comfortable at the plate. They're playing to take the swings they want to take, see the pitch they want to see, work on some things. This is their opportunity to fine-tune everything, make sure everything's game speed. These are their rehearsals, right? They've been working all off-season. We know that a lot of these guys have had extended off-seasons of intensive work. A lot of them have been in Tampa, getting work in, all that stuff, getting themselves locked and loaded for the year. But, this is their opportunity to get used to game speed. And this is what these... It's going to look sloppy, right? We've seen a lot of sloppy defense in these early games, not just from us, but from other teams as well. That's how it's going to look, right? Guys are adjusting to game speed. If it's a week away from spring training and Anthony Volpe's booting everything that's hit at him, I'll be like, all right, little bit worried that we're this close, you know what I mean? But for now, I just care that when you hear them talk after the game, when you hear reports the next day, it's feeling good, body's responding well, I feel good at the plate. That's all I care about. That's all I care about. Obviously, I want to see guys throw a little harder than years past. Obviously, I want to see guys moving the ball, hitting the ball harder, or, moving a little better than years past. Those are things that are super important, but those are things that we can measure statistically. Those aren't things you just look at, right? We can see if a guy's throwing harder because we can just track it, right? We can see if a guy's hitting the ball harder because, again, we can track that. We can see if teams know if a guy's swinging the bat harder. Teams know if a guy's running faster, all that stuff. So, ultimately, Alex, I kind of wanted to use this segment to make sure that we're talking about good and bad. We're making sure we're highlighting all the good and the bad and talking about all players fairly. But when it comes to spring training, we're doing it with that grain of salt of it's spring training, and a lot of these guys and a lot of the guys they're facing aren't at game speed yet and aren't going to be at their sharpest.
Yeah, of course. It's definitely a take it with a grain of salt type of situation. Saw some nice contact, nice defensive plays from Yorbit Vivas, by the way, who will be having his own video dropping in a little bit here. So, definitely a guy that we've been keeping an eye on. We're going to continue to keep an eye on. And, of course, you can come here to Fireside Yankees to get all the breakdowns if you do miss the games and all the standout performances and the lowlights, of course, and guys who are struggling, maybe putting themselves in a tough spot with the regular season approaching. And, yes, spring training is spring training. It's take it with a grain of salt. But we've seen regular season decisions happen because of spring training performances. Look to last year in Anthony Volpe and Oswald Peraza. We've seen people lose jobs. So it is important, despite the fact that unlikely that, the majority of our primary starters are affected in any way. But as always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.